In honor of the Phoenician Scheme, it seemed like an appropriate time to talk about the films of Wes Anderson and specifically rank them because I know some people are very divided on Wes Anderson. I know some people say he's never made a bad movie. I know others who think he is largely overrated. I want to say I think this guy is incredibly prolific. However, I'm not going to say that he has not made a bad movie. He's made a few films that I don't really care about. However, I am a big fan of him regardless. The films that I love of his, I absolutely adore. And I've been doing this rewatch, and I noticed some of my rankings just go against the grain of like common perspective on Wes Anderson. So I'm really excited to talk about the 12 films, talk about what I like in each of them, talk about some of my dislikes, why they are where they are. And the thing that's exciting for me, because I did the same thing during Asteroid City, I noticed my rankings have changed significantly over time, and it really does play to a rewatch. I noticed that I gain new things about each movie every time I watch them. And it really depends on where I am in my point of life when I watch that movie and how I engage with them. With that said, some of them are just steadfast where they belong, and I haven't shaken on those beliefs. So we'll talk about all of them. But let's start at number 12, which I really tried with this movie, and I was just on vacation, so I decided to give most of Wes Anderson's films a rewatch, and I was really hoping I could get something out of The French Dispatch. This is probably my fourth time watching this movie, and I was really just wanting to see the hype and acclaim for this movie this time around, because I've seen it multiple times, and I just don't care for this movie. I think I've had it rated at one point at like 1.5 stars on Letterboxd. So like I was really hopeful like this time, few years older, few years removed from this movie, I was like, you know what? Maybe this will be the time that I get it. And I have the exact same experience that I have with The French Dispatch, where for the first like 45 minutes of this movie, I'm absolutely loving it. And then the final like two vignettes just don't work for me. So I will say The French Dispatch, I like the beginning of this film. I like the Owen Wilson riding a bike vignette that we explore. And then I like a lot the vignette with Benicio del Toro, with Lea Seydoux, with Adrian Brody, this whole artist in prison. I love that vignette. It's some of Wes Anderson's best work. When we get to the Timothy Chalamet and Frances McDormand one, and then we get to the Jeffrey Wright one, while I think Jeffrey Wright is such a capable performer of Wes Anderson's dialogue, ultimately, I just can't get into it. It becomes very idiosyncratic in a way that I just don't respond to. The humor of these films don't work after a while. I do like the ending of The French Dispatch quite a bit. This is a film that I noticed I had a growing appreciation for while watching it, but it still wasn't enough to get me over the line on this movie. I gave it 2 stars on Letterboxd. That's where I stand on this movie. Ultimately, I appreciate and respect the experiment, and I think this has some of the most Wes Anderson qualities as a filmmaker. I think the worlds that he builds out are vast and really play to his strengths, but ultimately I think the story just fails him, and I think there's just too many characters to serve in not enough time. So that's why The French Dispatch is coming in at number 12. Number 11 for me is a film that I think is okay. And that is a movie that I saw in theaters. It is Isles of Dogs. And this is a movie that I remember really liking when I saw in theaters. I thought it was a very funny movie. I've gone back and rewatched this film, and I've just kind of been a little confounded with Isle of Dogs. This is certainly not a bad movie per se. I actually think it's a pretty solid watch. It's a very beautifully animated movie. It has some really great voice performances in here. Some of the humor really delivers on that level. Ultimately, some of the things that I have a hang up with is the world in which Wes Anderson chooses to tell this story. I think there is a quality of the animation and storytelling, specifically the fact that a lot of this movie is told in another language, that I've just never really been able to respond to. And I think Wes Anderson kind of gets lost in, I don't want to call it appropriation, but it's something along those lines with this movie where it's just, he doesn't feel like he has the greatest sense of this culture and an understanding. He feels a little out of his element at times making this movie. On top of it being a movie, an animated movie, and his follow-up to Fantastic Mr. Fox in animation, I just don't really understand the purpose of him making this movie. It's just kind of one that gets lost in Wes Anderson's prolific filmography that I've just, again, I don't dislike this movie. I think there's redeeming qualities of this movie, but ultimately it's just one that I never return to, never really think about since watching. So it just comes in at number 11 at that point. Coming in at number 10 for me is a movie that is probably due for a rewatch for me. Ultimately, this is a movie that I like. However, I think it is just the softest of that. It is Bottle Rocket. And I want to talk about the strengths of Bottle Rocket, specifically the performances of this movie. James Caan, Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson are all really good in this movie. This does have the issue, though, while watching Wes Anderson, where this is Wes Anderson light. This is somebody discovering that they are Wes Anderson, which means the tools to the craft are not there. And there's just some things that feel like they'll get better thought out later as he goes in his filmography. I also think there is just some issues, this being one of his earliest films. There are just performers in this movie who are just not up to par and don't really understand the Wes Anderson ability as a screenwriter. And I just think they kind of fail the dialogue oftentimes. There is just some, quite honestly, some bad acting in this movie. There's some really good acting. I think Owen Wilson is exceptional in this movie, and you can see that relationship that these two men form right away. Ultimately, though, this is just kind of the introduction, and I think that is where this film belongs at number 10, where it's just like everything else that he's done since then, I think he just better understands and builds off Bottle Rocket. So this is the groundwork that he lays out. Number 9, and I actually kind of debated maybe putting this film higher, but ultimately I'm going to keep it where I have it right now. It is the Darjeeling Limited. This is a movie that I know some people just can't stand. I know some people have used some pretty bad words around this movie, cultural appropriation, anything like that. I've heard white privilege being a term used for this movie. I totally get some of those complaints. I will say that this is a movie that grew on me the more I watched it. I think this one has something very special at it, which is the central core of the three brothers, played by Owen Wilson, played by Jason Schwartzman, played by Adrian Brody. I think they are actually giving legitimately wonderful performances in this world. I think there is a lot to really respect and like about this movie. This is a very intimate movie from Wes Anderson. You know, he is so well known for his large ensembles, and this movie just really focuses on the three of them. You also have Bill Murray, you have Angelica Houston, common performers within Wes Anderson's filmography, but ultimately these are the three guys that come to play, and it's a very intimate, tragic, and funny story about brotherhood and family and dealing with and grappling death. I think it is a very mature film from Wes Anderson, and I really like everything that he captures. And I think this is an underlooked, beautiful film in terms of scale and scope that Wes Anderson is able to accomplish behind the camera. Coming in at number 8. And this one is one that I'll kind of save more for my review, which will be coming out Tuesday in theory. This is The Phoenician Scheme, his newest film. And this is not to denigrate the movie by any means. Not having it in the high highs of Wes Anderson isn't really doing this film a disservice, because you look at all the films that are about to come up and you're just like, make the argument that this film is better than that. It's almost impossible. And also it's kind of in the thing of like, well, you're talking about 7 films that I really love coming up right now. So The Phoenician Scheme falls at number 8 for me. There is a lot to like about this film. And again, I'll talk about it in my review tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe to it if you're curious about that review. But ultimately, here's what I'll say about this movie. I think this is a very straightforward, funny movie from Wes Anderson. This is a very silly movie from him that I really appreciated. This has very strong central performances in this movie. Specifically, Benicio del Toro is really good as the lead in this movie. The guy who knocked me off my ass in this movie is Michael Cera, who I just legitimately compared to LeBron 2012 type season from Michael Cera in this movie. I think this is like him at the top of his powers. I was just immensely blown away by what Michael Cera does in this movie. I was so impressed. I was so happy. He had a huge smile on my face anytime he came up on this movie. So I was just so into this movie. I really understood this movie's humor. I really understood this movie's pacing. I will just say, this movie has a writing issue in the sense that I just think it's a little convoluted and hard to follow. That doesn't mean much when I'm having as fun of a journey as I did with this movie. So Phoenician Scheme is number 8, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in my review tomorrow. Coming in at number 7, and I'm going to just say my 4 through 7 is a death row, where I just kind of debated back and forth what I was going to do with these films, because honestly, I can kind of rank 4, 5, 6, 7. They're all a little interchangeable for me. This is where I ended my rewatch, and I want to say I watched all of these films again this week. Number 7 in this is going to be controversial, so I'm sorry ahead of time. I have the Grand Budapest Hotel. And I just want to say, while it's my number 7, this is also, and you can check it on my letterbox, this is a film that I gave 4 stars out of. This is not me being like, well, the Grand Budapest is overrated. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do at all. The Grand Budapest is wonderful and delightful. I love this movie. It's just, like I said, the competition coming in 6 films above it, I just think are extremely strong. The Grand Budapest Hotel, like, what do I want to say about this movie? It has some of my favorite performances. It has one of the best performances we've ever had in a Wes Anderson film, in Ralph Fiennes playing Gustav. And he is just so funny in this movie, and he's such a devilish character. I love the tone of this. He fits the world of Wes Anderson so well. This is a movie about the joy with the ever feeling creeping in of fascism on the sides. This is a movie that gets darker and darker as it goes along, and you kind of feel the whimsy and light being like pulled away from this movie in a very special way. Adrian Brody is hysterical in this movie. Every performance in this movie is just so well paced, well realized. This is Wes Anderson, I think, at his most commercial. Obviously, this is also the film that I think a lot of people learned who Wes Anderson was. This is his most critically acclaimed film with the Academy. There is just so much specialness in the set, in the aesthetic of this movie. And ultimately, I just think it is a wonderful diorama that Wes Anderson builds with the Grand Budapest Hotel. These next 6 films, I think, are just all-timers for me. Films that I love and just get more and more out of each time that I watch them. Which brings me to my number 6, and this is one that really climbed the ranks. The first time I saw this movie a few years ago, I certainly liked this movie. Second time I watched it, it really unlocked itself for me, and I was really impressed by what this film is able to be about and accomplish. And this shouldn't come as a surprise, because this is one of Wes Anderson's most beloved films. Some people are going to think it's too low on this list. I have Rushmore at number 6, his 1998 story about a kid named Max Fisher, who's low-key a sociopath and falls in love with his teacher and starts doing battle with another man interested in his teacher. That man played by Bill Murray. This is a delightfully funny movie. This is a movie that I think is, I've heard some people describe this as the last time Wes Anderson felt dangerous as a filmmaker. I get that. The Max Fisher character is almost psychotic in this movie. There is a tonality to this movie that I don't think Wes has ever really wanted to return to. There is a rawness to the emotion. There is a definitive inability to understand the emotion being portrayed in this film that I think makes it very special with Wes Anderson, and also just Jason Schwartzman coming out swinging as a filmmaker. This is probably my favorite Bill Murray performance in his career. There's one other one that we'll talk about later that I think rivals it within the Wes Anderson catalog. But ultimately, this is a movie that I just found incredibly funny, incredibly sad, and just ultimately, I just found such a rewarding experience going back and watching it. You see where Wes Anderson has become. And again, it is the evolution of a filmmaker from Bottle Rocket to Rushmore that then I think gets cemented in his next film, which we'll talk about in a second. My number 5, and this is a film that I know some people are extremely divided on. I'll be honest, the first time I saw this movie, I thought it was so bad. And I've now seen this movie, I think, a total of 3 times. And every time my appreciation and love for this movie grows. I just think it is maybe Wes Anderson at his most creative. And I think it is a movie that is so beautiful and unlocks so much to understand about Wes Anderson. And I'm going to say it is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. And just absolutely floored by this movie. I love this movie. And again, I should just say, like, Life Aquatic is a 4.5 out of 5-star movie for me. So, like, this is the top 5 for me. We're just talking about films that I think are unquestionably genius. And The Life Aquatic is just, it is Wes Anderson's, I think, most tragic movie. This is a movie that, like all of his movies, essentially explore fatherhood and the failures of fatherhood, and also trying to grow as a father and understanding what that relationship means. It is a common theme. The way he portrays it in this movie, I find incredibly special, along with the set design, being on the submarine, paying homage to Jacques Cousteau, all of that. Like, it all works in this movie. I think the performances are all strong. This movie's incredibly funny. I know some people think this movie's a little overlong, and I totally get that criticism because I feel that for like the first half an hour or so of this movie. But ultimately, I think what this film achieves, especially in its finale, is just so special. And this relationship, this dynamic, and this tragedy at the heart and center of Steve Zissou's life. And to see that character grow and to see that all happen in the course of 2 hours, I just find it epic in a way that I don't find many Wes Anderson films. I would describe them to be that way. I think it's an incredibly endearing, special film from Wes Anderson that I love. Coming in at number 4, and this is probably my most controversial pick that I have on the list, because I know some people are extremely divided on this. Honestly, I saw this movie and loved it, and have seen it again and love it, and I just don't think this movie will ever really shrink in appreciation for me. It is Asteroid City, which is definitely one of Wes Anderson's most divisive movie, which is very metatextual. This is a movie about the production of a play where we are watching the play transfold, and then we're also watching the actors kind of break character at times, and we see the behind the scenes of this play. I hope I described that fairly well. This is a film that I think works as a skeleton key within Wes Anderson's filmography, specifically the second half, really from Grand Budapest on. And I think it's just a very wonderful film with wonderful performances all throughout. I think when people are talking about Wes Anderson not being emotionally vulnerable, I think that just means they're misunderstanding / not really able to dive into what Asteroid City is about, where this is a movie about an artist experiencing loss, about an artist becoming older, and all of that in between. There's so many great performances in here. Just to shout out a few, I think Jason Schwartzman is great in this movie. Same with Scarlett Johansson. Jeffrey Wright is great. Maya Hawke, I think, is wonderful in this film. There's so many performances. Edward Norton, Adrian Brody are all really good. This is just the biggest ensemble that Wes has ever worked with, I think. And it just all comes to deliver. I think the production of this movie is just wonderful, recreating this 1950s atomic desert town. I just absolutely love this movie. I'm obsessed with this movie, and this movie just really unlocks itself in the third act for me, where we are exploring what it means to be alive. And to be alive means to face tragedy, and to face tragedy means to be alive. I think it's a very special movie from Wes Anderson, which brings me to my top 3. And I'll be fully honest, my top 3, they've never fallen off. I've switched my 2 and my 3 from last time, but ultimately these are the 3, and it's going to be hard for Wes Anderson to ever top these 3. And if he does, it just means he has one of his best films coming out ever. So let's just start with my number 3. I have Fantastic Mr. Fox here. This was actually my first introduction to Wes Anderson, even if I didn't know it. I saw this movie in theaters, didn't know it was a Wes Anderson film. Obviously a huge fan of Roald Dahl growing up, and this movie is just so special, and I love it every time I see it, and it just grows and grows in my appreciation. I just think it's it's probably the movie of Wes Anderson's that I laugh the hardest at. I think there's a joke omitted in this movie. I think all the performances are wonderful. George Clooney is absolutely delightful in this movie. Check out the behind the scenes on this movie, where you literally see George Clooney filming this movie and acting like he is Fantastic Mr. Fox, and it's just a wonderfully delightful thing. Everything about this movie, what it says, again, this is another movie that explores fatherhood, as all of these films do, but the way that this one does, the idea of being in life and not having life figured out the way you want to, or feeling trapped by the wall of life. I just find this all so special. I find it all so funny. Everything about this movie works. The animation just blends so perfectly. I think it's the perfect meeting point of Wes Anderson, Roald Dahl, and done in a very special way. Just delightfully fun movie. Number 2, And this is the one that climbed a little bit. I had it at number 3 last time. I'm putting it at number 2. This is a 5-star movie for me. It is Moonrise Kingdom. This is like the most underappreciated Wes Anderson movie, where I feel like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this movie's good. And I just like watch this movie. I'm like, this is like the most special movie I've ever seen, and I love this movie. Moonrise Kingdom tells the story of these 2 kids who essentially run away and go on an adventure together, and then all the adults around them are kind of failing them over and over again. And it follows a few characters who have to step up and essentially kind of take on the responsibility. Specifically, I'm talking about the Bruce Willis character and the Edward Norton character. And what I love about this movie is actually how different it is from Wes Anderson. One, this is a very naturalistic film from Wes Anderson. Yes, a lot of the eccentricities and the little like cliches, I guess that you could say, that make Wes Anderson are present within this movie. However, I think the outdoor setting feels very different for Wes Anderson and just captures a very different cinematography landscape and also just a different artistic blending of ideas that Wes Anderson has. And I think the performance and script is very different for Wes Anderson, where all of the father figures up until this point are very flawed human beings who kind of fail in their roles as fatherhood and have to kind of learn to adapt in it. This is kind of the opposite of that. Moonrise Kingdom is about 2 guys who are ultimately trying to do good. That is the Edward Norton character, and that is the Bruce Willis character, who then find the opportunity to do good. And when they find out of a situation that they realize isn't great, they go out of their way to make the situation better. I think it's a very kind film. I think it's a very beautiful film. I think the relationship between the 2 young kids in this movie is just absolutely wonderful. I adore this film. Watching it, I find it such a comforting movie, such a beautiful movie, such a naturalistic movie, and something wholly unique within Wes Anderson's filmography that I just am absolutely obsessed with. I love Bruce Willis in this movie, and I think you'll notice this in my number 1 and 2 picks. I really took 2 actors who don't really fit in the Wes Anderson mold and who adapt their acting style to be in here and are kind of rubbing up against it. I think Bruce Willis does that very well and very effective in Moonrise Kingdom. I wish we got to see more roles like this from Bruce Willis, but I absolutely adore his character of Captain Sharp in this movie. And like I said, I just think this is an incredibly beautiful, special movie from Wes Anderson that I love. This is the first time I watched a movie and was aware I was watching a movie directed by a guy named Wes Anderson. So this is my real first exposure to this style of filmmaking and being conscientious of what I was watching and learning of a guy like Wes Anderson. So it's a very special movie in my heart, which brings us to our number 1. And I don't know how many people are going to disagree with this. I have a feeling most people would at the very least have this film in their top 3, if not their top 1 or 2. This is the Royal Tenenbaums, which I do just think is Wes Anderson's masterpiece. I don't think he'll ever be able to top this movie. And that's not a discredit to all the other movies. It is just like the Royal Tenenbaums is one of my favorite films ever made. And that's a high bar to clear. This is a just delightful film about a dysfunctional family who has to learn what it means to be a family in just the weirdest way. This is a film that obviously borrows from all the literary novels that Wes Anderson read as a child. A lot of American writers of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s are really inspired in here, as is the music. I mean, this is probably the first time I ever listened to the Velvet Underground, listened to Nico. Just all of that music being discovered in this movie. So many just like great moments in this film. I love some of the performances in this film. I think Gwyneth Paltrow is special in this movie. It's by far my favorite performance of her, and specifically Gene Hackman, which is kind of the star of this movie. We obviously recently lost Gene Hackman. This is one of his best performances by far, and I know there was obviously some slight conflict between Hackman and Wes Anderson. What Hackman is able to achieve within the Royal Tenenbaums, playing Royal Tenenbaum, is just this scoundrel on screen that you also can't help rooting for, and you love to see this character grow, and it makes this film all the more special, seeing this character grow from where we meet him to where he ends. It is a perfect Gene Hackman role. It is something that clearly pushes him out of his comfort zone, and there is just a kindness and beauty to all these characters, and just this centricity to this family's love that isn't able to ever be really talked about. And once we finally get to that, and once Royal is essentially able to bring everyone back together, I find it just incredibly powerful. All the performances in this, Luke Wilson is wonderful as Richie Tenenbaum in this movie. Everyone's so well cast in this movie, but Richie Tenenbaum serves as the heart of this movie in what is one of Wes Anderson's most shocking scenes. I know some people have issues with the Ben Stiller performance. I love this performance, and I think it really does capture the comedic persona that Ben Stiller is building in his career. And specifically, it gets us to the final moments, which is one of my favorite moments in a Wes Anderson film, where we have the character of Chaz Tenenbaum telling his father, "I've had a rough year, Dad." I find it so beautiful. I find it such a relatable story, despite how unrelatable and how idiosyncratic these characters are. I just find this movie just utterly delightful. It's so charming to me. It's so just a style and an atmosphere that I love and am obsessed with. It is Wes Anderson's masterpiece to me. I don't know if it will ever be topped. The Royal Tenenbaums is my clear number one. So that's my ranking. Let me know, what did I get wrong? What films did I have too high? What films did I have too low? Let me know below, what is your rankings? I want to hear everybody's rankings. So leave that in the description / comments below, and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like more. Thank you to everyone who watched this. I will have a few more reviews coming out in the next few days. I should be having a review of the Phoenician Scheme. I want to have a review of Predator Killer of Killers. I should be having a few other reviews coming out really soon, like The Life of Chuck, Materialist. I really want to do a Dogma review, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have the time, but I really, really want to talk Dogma. So all those reviews, check it out on my channel. So subscribe for more. Thank you to everyone who watched. And again, let me know what you thought of my rankings and what your personal rankings would be for Wes Anderson.